Anyhow, today's objective is factoring trinomials. Whoops. Dropped my markers. Okay, factoring trinomials. We've added, subtracted, and we've multiplied, and you've been factoring using the GCF. So we're going to continue with that, and I'm going to show you how to bring it all the way out to factor. So first thing we do is you check to see if there's a GCF. If there's a GCF, you're going to pull out that greatest common factor. Then we're going to use the box method to figure out what to do with those leftovers, those three terms that are left in the parentheses. And then once you figure it out and use the box method, then you're going to break them up into two parentheses. So the idea is you're going to have a trinomial, and then we're going to break it into two binomials. And here's your box method. You're going to put the first term right here. The first term right here, the last term here, and these are going to stay blank for a minute. And to find those factors, we're going to use like this X. And so I put a multiplication dot at the top and an addition sign right here to help you remember. And so we're going to use this. I'm going to walk you through it several times, and it's going to seem a little confusing, but I think you'll get the hang of it. All right, so copy down your examples. Example 1, x squared plus 7x plus 12. First we look for a greatest common factor. They don't all have an x, and this has a 1, a 7, and a 12 are your coefficients, so we don't have a greatest common factor. We have to use the box method. That means we put our first term, x squared, right here, and our last term right here. Leave the other two boxes blank just for a second. Now we need to use this x. Remember I told you multiplication up here, addition. The top number is going to be this coefficient times this coefficient. So this coefficient is 1, so 1 times 12 is 12. So the top number is 12. This bottom number is going to be the coefficient right here in the middle, 7. All right, so let me make sure you follow. I did 1 times 12 to get 12, and then 7 right here. We want to multiply to be 12, and we want to add to be 7. We need the factors of 12. The factors of 12. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and then you have the -1, -12, -2, -6, -3, -4. Because this is a positive 12, that means we need numbers that are going to be, when you multiply them, to be positive 12. So 1 times 12 and -1 times -12. Those are all the factors of 12. What we have to do is we have to find two factors that when you add them, they're going to be 7. And this is a positive 7, not a negative 7. So if you were to add 1 and 12 and -1 and 12, that wouldn't work. If you were to add 2 and 6, that wouldn't work, and -2 and -6 wouldn't work. So we've narrowed it down to 3 and 4 and -3 and -4. But only one of them will work because remember we want to add to be a positive 7, which means we need to use the positive 3 and the positive 4. So let's double check. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 plus 4 is 7. Now that we have found our factors, we can go back over here to our box. And when we put them in our box, we're going to put an x with them. So we'll put 3x here and 4x here. All right, so that's probably the hardest step, is finding the factors to put back in your box. Once you find your factor, once you put all of your pieces in the box, now you have to find the greatest common factor for each section. So let me show you what I mean. Let's take these top right here, these two boxes. The greatest common factor between x squared and 4x. They both have an x in common. And the greatest common factor between 3x and 12, well, the greatest common factor would be 3. All I'm doing is I'm pulling out the greatest common factor. That's why it's so important that you understand the greatest common factor. Now let's look this way. X squared and 3x, they have an x in common. And 4x and 12, they have a 4 in common. Because 4 will go into 4 and 4 will go into 12. This one doesn't have an x, so you can't pull out an x. Now that we've pulled out the greatest common factor, so let's just put some steps up here. Number 1, we put in the box. Number 2, we found the factors. Number 3, now we pull out the GCF of each section. The last step is now putting it back in parentheses. You've done all the work, now we just have to rewrite it as the parentheses. These are both positive, so my first parentheses would be x plus 3. And then right here I have x plus 4. And we're done. This is factored. This is your final answer. Okay? Number 2. G squared plus 7g plus 10. All right, we know that we're going to put the first term in the first box and the last term in the last box. I'm going to multiply. This is like a 1, right? I'm going to multiply 1 times 10, and then I want to add to be 7. I need the factors of 10. This is a positive 7. This is a positive 10. So remember, to get a positive 10, you can have 2 negatives or you can have 2 positives. But because this is a positive, then I'm not going to worry about the negatives because you can't add 2 negatives to get a positive. So I only want the positive factors, 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. I can see that 2 and 5 are going to add to be 7 and multiply to get 10. Hi. What? Oh, we don't have any.
No, we did.
Who put it in there?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Today?
No, before.
Somebody already got that.
Oh.
They've been coming every day.
Oh.
Okay, sorry. So the factors to multiply, so 2 times 5 is 10, 2 plus 5 is 7. So that means we're going to put a 2x here and a 5x here. Now we have to pull out the greatest common factor. So let's look right here. Whoops, not an x, sorry. G. Sorry. So let's look right here. They have a g in common. And right here they have a 2 in common, because 2 will go into 2, 2 will go into 10. This way they have a g in common. And this way they have a 5 in common. Now, everything is positive, so our final step is to rewrite it using parentheses. G plus 2, G plus 5. And there we go. Now it's factored. All right, number 3. A squared plus 13a plus 30. We're going to put our first term right here and our last term. And remember, we want to multiply. 1 times 30 is 30, and then positive 13. So the factors of 30, we multiply to get 30, and we add to get 13. So that's 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. So do you see factors that if you added them together, you would get 13? And hopefully you see 3 and 10. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 plus 10 is 13. So we're going to put a 3x here and a 10x there. Now we pull out our greatest common factor. I keep putting x. I'm sorry. This is an a and this is an a. So right here I can pull out an a. And right here I can pull out a 3. This way I can pull out an a. And this way I can pull out a 10, because 10 will go into 10 and 10 will go into 30. The last step is you rewrite it using your parentheses. A plus 3 and a plus 10. And that is your answer. Okay? So I think it's best if we do some more examples. And now we're going to kind of get into with some minuses in here. So that's important for us to look at that. So number 4, we have w squared plus 21w plus 20. In our box, we're going to put w squared here and 20 here. And I multiply 1 times 20 and I get 20, and then 21. The factors of 20, so if you added them, you would get 21. The factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. So which 2 factors could you use that if you added them together, you would get 21? So 1 and 20. So that means this would be 1w, and then this would be 20w. All right. Now we pull out the factors. Hopefully this is going a little quicker for you. We pull out the factors. What do they have in common? W squared and 20w. Well, they both have a w. And here they both have a 1. That's it. This way they have a w. And this way they both have a 20. All I'm doing is I'm pulling out the greatest common factor from these two boxes together, across and up and down. Then we rewrite using our parentheses, w plus 1 and w plus 20. Okay? All the examples we've done so far have been just with positives. So now let me show you what happens when you have some negatives. It changes a little bit. K squared minus 10k plus 25. We draw our box. The first term goes in the first box. The last term goes in the last box. All right, so now 1 times 25 is 25, but our middle term is a negative 10. So you notice that negative. That means when I add the numbers together, I need to get a negative 10. And that's when it's going to be a little tricky. The factors of 25, 1 and 25, and 5 and 5. If we add those together, we don't get a negative 10. We get a 26 and we get a positive 10. So that means maybe we need to look at the negative factors. Negative and negative. Negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25, but when you add it together, it's a negative 10. So in this example, we're going to start using negative numbers because we want them to add to be this negative 10. So I have negative 5k and negative 5k. I need to still pull out my greatest common factor. So right here they have a k in common. And then this is where it can get tricky. Right here, they have a, what would you say? They have a negative 5 in common. Right here they have a k. And then over here they have a negative 5 in common because of this negative right here. Now, if that's tricky, then make sure you ask me questions about that because of that negative right there. That means, because this is really a negative 5 times negative 5. So that's how they have a negative 5 in common. I know my phone's ringing, beeping, sorry. I know that can be a little confusing, but if this number is negative right here, then that means this is probably going to be negative 5 times negative 5. Now I have my GCF, so now I can rewrite it, k minus 5, and the reason it's minus is because of that negative, times k minus 5. And then if you notice, do you notice anything about these two? These parentheses are the same, so we could write this as k minus 5 squared. That's just another way, but you can write it like that. Okay, let me see the time. All right. I'm going to do this number 6 with you. I'm going to do this last example with you, and then I'll probably stop because it's getting long. M squared minus 15m plus 36. We put our chart, first term, last term, and then we want to get 36, but we want to add to get negative 15. So remember that negative. We need the factors of 36. So we have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12. Now 3 and 12 could give me a positive 15, but if you notice, I'm all positive, but I need a negative 15. So we need to start looking at the negative factors. Since this is a positive 36, we need to just make both of these negative. And then I can see a negative 3 and a negative 12 would give me a negative 15. So negative 3m, negative 12m. I pull out my greatest common factor. So right here they have an m in common. And right here they're going to have a negative 3. This way they have an m in common. And this way they have a negative 12. Because remember, this is really negative 3 times negative 12. So you can see they both have a negative 3 and they both have a negative 12. Once you pull out your greatest common factor, we can rewrite it using our parentheses. So m minus 3 and m minus 12. Okay? So those were 6 examples. I'm not even going to try to pretend this stuff is easy. It's a little complicated, but the only way to get better is to keep practicing. And I have 2 more boards to show you, but we will continue this discussion in class.